So now that we've talked about genres, we've figured out pitches for our concepts, we've taken those pitches and then tried to expand them into episode lists. We've then used that to decide which concept is the one to work with first. Let's actually then plan out your first run of episodes. Now, don't panic here because the goal is not to script out a bunch of episodes right now. Ain't nobody got time for that. The goal is to just give you an outline so that now you know week to week or however often you're producing your show what is going to come next. This is not written in stone. So to get started in the documents for this section, there's a link to a Google Doc that I put together, which is based on the exact document that I actually do use for my podcasts. So this is a real life thing, and we'll just call it the podcast season planner. And basically what we've got here is a very, very simple outline of 10 episodes. Your season does not have to be 10 episodes. Like I mentioned earlier, I personally, on my personal podcast, do 21 episode runs because the first time I started the podcast after 21 episodes is where I hit a point where I didn't know what else to talk about. So I decided to take a break, gather my thoughts, and then come back for the rest. So, well, like I said, this is pretty simple and it will help you if you need to script out your episodes down the line. So podcast season planner, I'm going to use my ska podcast as an example. The first episode was my history with ska. Now, you don't have to put an exact title here. However, if you do know a title for your episode or you're thinking of one, this is a good spot to actually brainstorm the real title that you'll end up using for your episode. Now, the next spot here is for you to decide when you want to release that episode. So for the sake of keeping this course timely, we're going to say that we're going to release this episode on January 1st of 2030. And that would mean our record date. When do I want to record that? So if January 1st, 2030, maybe I need a few days before that, so maybe I would want to record on December 25th, 2029. So Christmas Day, I'll spend my day recording this podcast. I have a few days then to release it and upload it. And in my case, I want this to be a weekly show, so now I can actually go through and figure out, okay, the next one would be on January 8th, 2030. We'll say for the Ska Podcast, episode 3 was going to be an interview with Mike, and we'll call that like riding the waves of ska, because that's what we're going to talk about, different waves of ska music, because it turns out he's kind of an expert on that. The reason I put this one down here is because since it's an interview, your interview subject might dictate your recording day. So if normally you record on a Friday for a Monday release, maybe your person can only record on Wednesday or something. So you're going to say like Wednesday 1/7/2030. I don't know if that's even a Wednesday or not. It doesn't matter for right now, but we'll just say, okay, we're recording then, we're releasing then. And then here is a place to now pitch each episode. So just like we did for the podcast in general, this is for each episode, because even if you don't script things out in their entirety, having that purpose is really going to be key to making your episode interesting. So in this case, the first episode, I would say that my purpose is to introduce myself to the audience and let them know why and how I became passionate about ska music. Oh, and that actually means this one I would like my first Aquabats concert changed my life. That's an episode that I want to do, and I could record that a few days early. To explain a defining moment in my adolescence. Now, the episode pitch could play a role in developing your description when you actually upload the episode, but if nothing else, it gives you an idea of what you need to focus on. And then at least having a few talking points is really important. So, for example, in this episode, I want to talk about the music I grew up with. I want to talk about feeling like an outsider. And again, I'm kind of cheating because I already did this and recorded this episode a few weeks ago. So I'm not just easily coming up with these ideas. I've already gone through that pain. And then I could talk about discovering ska through Napster, because that's the timeline we're working with. If you press return, it'll just put in a new checkbox. I love using checkboxes because even as you're recording, you can have this outline up. This is what I do a lot of the times. And as I'm recording and I finish talking about something, I just check it off. And then I know that I've already talked about that thing. And so basically, you're just going to keep doing this same exercise for 10 episodes, which is a lot. When we came up with the concepts for episodes and broke things down, the order didn't matter here. But now here is when we actually do want to start paying attention to the order of the episodes, so you can start putting them in the order that you think you might want to include. So maybe I don't know what episode 4 is going to be, but I know that episode 5 is going to be ska remakes. I don't have a title for this, but I'm going to make a note to myself that it's going to be an in-depth, maybe a more narrative styled episode. So it's going to take a little more time to work on. And basically we can just start breaking things down that way. And this is incredibly helpful because as we go through episode 1 and we record it and we check everything off and we're done with it, now next time it's time to record, I don't have to sit there and think, what should my episode 2 be? I just go right here. And now I can see, oh, episode 2 was the first concert. Right. So I need this. I need to gather these clips. I'm going to know right away what I need. Of course, you can break down your talking points into materials you might need if you need an interview, a soundbite, a video clip, whatever. This is where you can put all those notes for episodes. And then from there, if you want to then, create a new document and really go through a whole script, a lot of that's going to depend on how you're approaching your show. Going back to what I've said before, there's no right or wrong answers here, but at least having these bullet points to structure your episodes is going to be extremely helpful, even if you then need to take each episode and further script it out down the line, however works best for you and your production process. This could potentially take a couple days to get through, outlining all 10 episodes in a way that you're happy. If you feel like you got ideas right now, spend some time filling them all out and then come back to it tomorrow or the next day and see how you feel about it. You might have more ideas. If you want to go beyond 10, do that. I strongly encourage you to have at least 10 because again, we want to get past the 7 episode slump, that average that people kind of stop podcasting at. And a run of 10 episodes is really going to make you feel accomplished. It's a victory no matter how you look at it. And then I made sure to put a note down here that says, be sure to take time to reflect on what did and didn't work at the end of your season. We'll call this first run of episodes your first season, and then it's on to the next one. So don't even worry after 1 or 2 episodes of like overanalyzing everything. Just make your first run of episodes and then sit there and think, okay, this is kind of where I'm at and how I feel like this works or doesn't work. And then you can go from there into the next season. The biggest thing here is this is literally the exact same document that I use, and I have used it for a long time. And I really can't even tell you how much stress it has relieved because I used to struggle every week when it came to podcasts. Oh my gosh, what am I going to talk about? What's this episode going to be about? Whereas now, before a season begins, I can outline the whole thing. My document has 21 episodes for my main podcast. And then I go through week by week and I break it down. If I need to change something along the way or switch things around, that's fine. No one's going to fire me for that. But at least I go into it knowing that even if I don't change anything, the whole season is mapped out in a way that makes sense, that I think is going to be beneficial to my audience. And one other thing to consider at this point is, are you going to produce multiple episodes before you launch your show, or are you going to produce on the fly, or are you going to do a combo? Maybe you produce 3 episodes, get going, and then start producing them as those first 3 are coming out. Whatever works best for you and your schedule is the way to go, but it's something to consider. If you work really hard on one episode, it feels exhausting, and then you put that out, and now you're like, oh my gosh, I got to struggle and do another one in a week. It could be a good idea to get at least a handful of episodes all done, so that way you can push them out and have some buffer between when you need to produce and release your next episodes. And this is also a good time to revisit some of the stuff that we talked about in section 1 about when you're going to be able to record in your schedule, when are you going to actually want to release your episodes, how often do you want to release. So we talked about all that stuff to do with genre and style and sustainability at the beginning. You might want to revisit that section now, or at least revisit some of those thoughts and notes, as now you take your concept that you've developed and you start building it out into an actual workflow. And once you've got your season planner filled out, then you're ready to go and you can jump into the actual production process.